The three most important ingredients in any garden: time, money, and time. There's the time that you actively put into it, every minute spent planting and weeding and watering and mowing and researching. There's the money that you spend on tools, on seeds, on assistance in the form of someone to help you, and on bigger projects too, on materials for things like walkways, paths, fences. And then there's the other kind of time, the passage of time. You can't make your garden mature any faster. You can't make fruit trees come into fruit any faster. You can't make things establish any faster than they just will over the course of a period of time, be that weeks, months, or years. When I started this channel, it was 2021. In 2020, I'd had to leave Japan because of the pandemic. So I came back to live with my parents and started slowly doing bits and bobs in their garden in between working terrible minimum wage jobs. I met someone, I fell in love, I got married, I obviously moved out, and I had a baby. And now this May 2025, we are moving back to Japan. So it's the end of the line really for me and this garden. My parents are planning to move house in the next couple of years. So it's really likely that today will be the last time that I get to see it. And there's a lot of emotion tied up in that, not only because I've known this garden since I was 7 years old. I've known this garden for more than 20 years. It's also the realization that we never quite got on top of everything. This garden's always been quite wild. It was one of the reasons we moved into this house, was because there was this huge garden. My mum wanted my brother and I to have the opportunity to sort of run around and be feral and hide and make fairy gardens and all of that. And that's what we did for years and years and years. And a part of me is a little bit sort of, I don't really want to say sad or disappointed, but a softer version of that. I have these feelings that I just wish we'd been able to get on top of it a bit more, because I think my mum always deserved a beautiful garden. But those three ingredients I talked about, time, money, and time, that's what it always comes back to. And with a garden of this size, the time that you have to put in as your maintenance time is so huge, especially when it's a space that's come with perennial weeds. You know, we've got bindweed out there, we've got brambles. These are weeds that can grow sort of 20, 30 centimetres a day in the height of summer if they're getting that light and they're getting water regularly. And then on the money side of things, it's a mature garden. There are mature trees there. The cost of getting those thinned out or taken down, that's thousands of pounds. Maintaining the fences, getting new fences installed, that again is thousands of pounds. We looked at getting a brick pathway put in, and again, that would be thousands of pounds. It's a lot of money to do it. And these things aren't always safe to do yourself. I could have done a brick pathway myself probably, although the year I planned to do it, I got pregnant and my mum said, I don't feel comfortable with you doing this kind of heavy labour. But things like thinning the crown of an oak tree, we couldn't do that ourselves. It's too dangerous. You need someone who's a trained arborist to get up there with ropes and a chainsaw, really. And then the other factor, the time that you can't control, the maturing period. Now, I put in loads and loads of effort in 2021 and I grafted trees and planted fruit trees and whatever. And some of those perennial plants, they're really starting to take off. Sort of last year, this year, they're suddenly pushing through and coming into their own. There was no way that I could have sped up that process. You know, you can't plant a rhubarb crown one year and the next year you've got a beautiful explosion of rhubarb. So part of me is quite sad that I'm going to be leaving this garden, and hopefully in Japan I'm going to have some spaces that I can do some gardening in, even if it's just like a container garden. But where we're moving to, there's some government allotment schemes, I think, or sort of farmland parcel schemes. So this won't be the end of my channel anyway. I want to keep making these videos. One of my biggest regrets on the subject of YouTube is that I didn't start making videos earlier. This channel's been a fantastic record of the things that I did do. And some of the tutorials I've made, they've been seen by thousands of people. I mean, my video about installing stepping stones is my most watched video. And it's been watched thousands and thousands of times. I think last time I checked, it was on about 55,000 views, which is really good for a channel my size. So I will keep going with this. But today I just wanted to say goodbye to the garden and yeah, just say goodbye to it, because I really love this space. And even if it didn't quite work as well as it could have as a food growing space or a flower growing space, it's been a fantastic wildlife haven. I look at the gardens around us, on either side of us, our neighbours' gardens, they're just lawns. There's not even any sort of shrub coverage on the sides. They're not even that classical English suburban garden style. But our garden's got mature trees, it's got undergrowth, it's got a pond. We see bats in the evening, we see birds in the day, we see all kinds of animals, foxes, hedgehogs, small mammals. It's also been a fantastic carbon sink. Thousands and thousands of kilograms of food waste and garden waste have had the opportunity in our garden to rot down into compost and top dressing, whereas in another house they might have ended up in landfill or been burnt. So in those ways it's really been a success. This is our lawn mowing crew. So we've got Sweet Potato and Sugarloaf. And they mow the lawn in this contraption that my dad built. You can see the patch of grass that they've mown. Yesterday they did sort of 2 squares, 2 rectangles really, there and there. And today they'll do this square. Oh, it's windy. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm going to go through some of the projects that I did in the garden, especially the ones that I made videos of. And just sort of say bye to them and say bye to the garden space. This is the back garden. I don't do anything in the front garden. That's all her domain. There she goes, picking up leaves or guinea pig poo or something. So here on the side of the patio, I've got one of my grafted cherries. And I made quite a few videos about this year. You can just see the remains of the blossom coming through there. I've got videos on how you can do that yourself. Just against the fence, and actually slightly in need of a prune perhaps this year, this is my plum tree. So this was one of the fruit trees that I planted really early on. It is a Herman, but this year we had a really good blossom on it, and you can see that the fruit is already coming through. So in about a month or so there'll be a beautiful bounty of plums. The lawn's looking a bit long at the moment. Last summer I kept coming around every week or so to help keep on top of it, but it does just grow very long and very lush very quickly. You can see this weird loop here just at the side of the garden. This was an arch that I had for my wedding. I actually had the reception for my wedding in this garden, and this archway we used chicken wire and moss as a medium, and just threaded bought flowers into it and some camellia branches as well, and it looked beautiful. It worked really well. Coming over this way, you've got the stepping stones that I installed. They've had a clear back. About a month ago I came in and gave them a clear back to make sure that they were functional and visible once more, and they've really done a good job. They've stopped this area becoming a big boggy mess. I made a video showing how you can install these yourself. You see what I mean about perennial weeds? We've got bindweed coming through in that corner. There's some here as well. And in terms of time, really to stay on top of it, you've got to come out every day and be pulling it up. Luckily bindweed doesn't have any thorns or poison. It can't sting you like stinging nettles, but it is such an invasive, noxious weed. Recently I've been seeing quite a few videos of people showing how they make their new build house garden into a beautiful cottage garden, and I have to say they've got an advantage over us. It's much easier to start with the blank slate of a small garden with lawn than it is to take over a space like this where you've already got your weeds and your trees and God knows what else. I never quite got to grips with the border at the back of the greenhouse, so this is all just weeds at the moment, I'm afraid. With our water butts there. There's a lovely ragwort coming through. But these ones were productive. I've grown potatoes here before. As you can see, some of the chives I planted have survived, so we've got some flowering chives coming through. So there are a few perennial herbs that have made it through. I've got a big sage bush there as well. And we grew cabbages. You can see we've got a cabbage flowering here. This is a cabbage coming into flower, and that'll make some seeds for more cabbages. Neighbour's kids' football there. But one of the success stories really was the rhubarb. And it's rhubarb season at the moment. We've got the rhubarb coming through beautifully, and you can see from the stems there broken on the ground. My mum's been harvesting it. She made a rhubarb cake yesterday for my Bon Voyage party. We've had compost heaps in the whole time that we've lived here. We've composted, as I said, thousands and thousands of kilograms of waste. And I think it's one of the best things you can do in your garden. You see lawn clippings there. I think the end ones may be quite rotted through. Look, it's beautiful, huge lavender. Yeah, so that's quite a rotted compost there. Now, compost is yet another thing that really comes into play with the second version of the time rule that I was talking about. You cannot rush compost. You can encourage better decomposition by balancing your greens and your browns, that's your nitrogen heavy waste, and your carbon heavy waste, and by making sure that it's wet enough. You can even turn it to encourage decomposition faster. But at the end of the day, if you want really good compost, you just have to wait. And in fact, many people who are more skilled in the way of soil than I am, they recommend waiting 2 years at least from the formation of a compost heap to using your compost, if you want it to have the best mix of nutrients and to have become not only bacteria heavy, but to get some beneficial fungi in there as well. Here's some more waste going to the compost. These are leftovers from the Bon Voyage party. So she's using the green Dalek composter at the moment. And we have a leaf litter here when we're making leaf mould. So that's when you collect your leaves and you keep it separate, and it rots down to make this beautiful light compost that's best for seedlings. Mum, do you want to say anything about the garden? We lived here since 1997.
Yeah, I still haven't got a handle on the garden. It still isn't tidy.
But we've had a lovely time in this garden, haven't we? We've had some really good memories.
This garden was great for the children to play in. There's still children come and play in it.
Exactly.
It's
My mum's got grandkids and bonus grandkids that run around all over.
Yeah.
It was a great space to play in when I was a kid. As a teenager, my brother used to come out here and throw knives around and set fire to things and do other teenage boy activities.
It's a bit of an oasis for wildlife compared to neighbours' gardens that are stripped clear.
Definitely. How many species of bird do you think we get? You do the big bird watch.
I did a count, and I think it came to about 15.
Amazing.
Or 16.
Amazing.
Including a sparrowhawk.
Including a sparrowhawk. Beautiful. Do you think your next house will have a smaller garden?
Oh yes.
This area again is another area that we've really struggled to know what to do with, kind of the space between the mature apple tree and the oak tree that was probably planted by a jay or a squirrel in about 2005. It's very shady in the summer with all of the canopy cover. We've got a hornbeam behind us as well. So we never really quite worked out what to do with it. And again, it's just ended up kind of like a weed space. But that's not always a bad thing, you know. As my mum said, that's providing haven for wildlife. We've got our lovely sort of little fairy fire pit here with logs and fire pit in the middle. And look at this. This is the wild garlic that I planted few years back, and it is slowly starting to colonise the place, despite being trampled a couple of times by people not looking where they're going. It is slowly making its way into the space. We've just noticed a male great tit. Did you see him going into the hole? So there is a nest in the side of our mature apple tree there. It's got tits in. He might, hopefully he'll come out in a second. Just keep my camera. There he goes. Hee-hee. So you can see what we mean about the wildlife. Now, something that's not native wildlife here is these bluebells. Bluebell woods are of course a staple of the British landscape, but these unfortunately are not native bluebells. These are Spanish or hybridized bluebells. And the way you can tell them apart is that the Spanish bluebells, they have more of an upright tendency, whereas English bluebells curve over like this and they just have a row of bells on the bottom. There's our what was this? Our straw barn. This is our straw barn for when we had the chickens. The chickens have gone off to another home. It's not very heavy, Brick. So at the moment this is just storage for stuff for the guinea pigs. So we have hay in here. We have stored firewood in here in the past as well. And dried garlic. When I was growing garlic, I dried it from the rafters. So the chickens are gone. They've gone to, well, they went to live with a friend of my mum's, and unfortunately 3 out of 4 of them have passed away now. One of them died here, that was Willow, the brown one. And then Nanami and Gimpy have both unfortunately passed away. It's kind of the reality of having chickens. They are a bit, they're quite like babies actually. They're very fast and they're suicidal. So the way we're managing this space now is that we're just trying to keep on top of it with the lawnmower. My mum's not had a chance to do it this week. But we're just trying to sort of keep the pasture mown and go from there. See again the issues we have with perennial weeds. We've got docks, we've got brambles, we've got this geranium, this cranesbill geranium. Makes these nightmare rhizomes very difficult to get rid of. But some of the fruit bushes that I planted are doing really well this year. And this is comfrey. This is a green manure that I planted. If we move the comfrey out of the way, behind it is one of my gooseberry bushes. And we've got gooseberries coming in. This is the Hoisamaki Red, so this will make red gooseberries eventually. And then this one here is the green variety, and I did give it a prune a couple of weeks ago. Again, you see the nightmare of this bindweed. Getting bindweed off gooseberries is just such a pain in the arse. I can see some alliums about to bloom there. I've got some bulbs all along here. Again, they are getting swamped by the bindweed, by the brambles coming through. It's just very difficult to keep on top of. And that goes for my apple trees as well. The 4 apple trees that I planted, they all survived. See the blossom coming through on them. It's going to be a good year for apples, I think, as well. And then this tree here, this is a white mulberry. I bought this on a whim and planted it on a whim because I was thinking about silkworms and starting to raise silkworms and possibly spin and weave my own silk. It was one of my ideas that went nowhere. And the garden's been full of projects like that. Not just projects that went nowhere, but projects that did take off but I never quite made videos about. At one point I was working for a restaurant and I started collecting food waste from the restaurant and bringing it back here and then using the bokashi method to break it down without attracting pests. And maybe I will make a video about that eventually, because it was quite amazing. I think over the course of the few months that I was working at the restaurant, I was saving about 5 kilo a shift of food waste, which was quite amazing to think about. All of that was going to landfill before, and instead it went to this garden and made compost. Now, another one of my successes is my wildlife pond here. The water level's a little bit low because it's not really been raining this spring. We've had a very dry spring so far in England. I've seen lots of different species coming to drink from here. Lots of birds coming down for a dip. The fox having a drink as well. Unfortunately, I haven't seen any frogs or toads, but this could just be a matter of our garden being isolated. We are sort of a wildlife haven in the midst of none other, you know. There's not other ponds around, so it could just be that there's such a shortage of frogs and toads that we don't see them. There are mosquito larvae in there though, I can see that, and they will provide food for bats and for dragonflies when they get going. So that's it really. That's me saying goodbye to my garden. I'm off to Japan, to pastures new, and to not have a garden of my own. And my parents are going to move out of this one and downsize into a smaller space. And it does make me sad to think about, because I think the next people who come into this space, they're not going to keep it as a wildlife haven. Most people in Slough, they don't want a high maintenance garden. Hopefully a gardener will come and take it on as a project. It would be great to have chickens here again. You could definitely raise lots of chickens here. We've shown that. But I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has enjoyed seeing my garden through the years. Thanks for coming along with me for the ride and seeing all the little projects that I did manage to get done. I hope that I've inspired you, even if you're not an expert, to get some gardening going. And if I could give you one piece of advice, it would be to start with a small space and make that space as good as you can and go from there. Big spaces take a lot of work and a lot of daily maintenance, so you have to ask yourself if you want to be doing that day in, day out. So Mum and me, we're going to have a coffee and chill out, and then I'm going to go and get on a bus, go back to London, and then finish packing, and in a few days I'm going to be leaving the country. Ignore the baby noise and come and take a look at this. This is going to be my new growing space. Look at this, check it out. I actually got quite a lot of space here. That is 120 across, 1.2 metres across. Okay. Each panel to the post is a metre, so 7 metres by 1.2, minus of course the space for the aircon, and I want to keep things clean under the hanging line. But that's how much space I've got to work with. That's so exciting. Alright, so the growing experience continues in Japan. My neighbours can hear me, this is so awkward. So out there, I'm not going to show you the view from my window because I don't want creepy stalkers. Out there I've got 1.2 times 7 metres worth of space to play with, minus the thing for the aircon. So that's really exciting. That's going to be where I have my container garden, hopefully. Yay! So do subscribe, stay tuned. I'm going to hopefully share lots of projects now I'm here in Japan, not just gardening, but sewing stuff as well. As I always have done on this channel. So thank you to everyone who stuck with me and moved houses with me, and let's see where this channel goes next. Bye!